So the first episode of Queendom Puzzle officially aired this morning for me. I'm gonna skip the parts that were in the preview, but you can find a link to my review of that in the description and possibly at the top of the video if I remember to do that. That would include my reactions to Doha, Rina, and Jihan's performances, so if you're curious, by all means check it out. As mentioned in that video, I was at work when the video aired. Imagine that, a K-pop stan with a job. Anyways, this meant I had to watch the episode via other means. So half the time I wasn't sure if it was the server or the editing during the performances, so I took the time to rewatch the performances. I want to try to keep these episode reviews short and positive, but I also want to give some constructive criticism where I can, because positivity is great, but we can't let that overshadow real criticisms. As a disclaimer, any and all opinions in this video are just that, opinions. They are not meant to be taken negatively, and criticisms of the performance do not reflect my opinion of them as performers. I know the show is a stressful environment, and for many, it's their first solo performance. So as a short recap, this episode was just what they're calling reevaluations. I guess that's because they all auditioned for the show? In true Mnet fashion, it was a 2+ hour episode where they didn't even show all the performances, nor did they fully show the performances they did air, but we'll get to that. In all honesty, I started getting a bit bored near the end. Not because of the contestants, but just Mnet's formulaic editing gets so tiring. Like, okay, we get it. She made a mistake on stage. She's too ambitious. She's an angel we should all be rooting for. They're all hungry and tired and cold because you set the studio temperature at freezing. We've seen all of this before. The side notes I did actually enjoy was when they showed Doha and Kay talking about how different idol culture is from their heyday, especially the outfits, now that there's even discussions among fans about being tired of designer and luxury brands being on every stage and missing the old costumes and custom outfits of second and early third gen. It was interesting, especially since it hasn't been that long since both of them stopped being active as idols. Doha explained why she decided to change her stage name from Chanmi, and it's, I think, the only one of these background segments that actually made me consider how that affected her performance. She explained that Do means ambitious, and Hwa means beauty, and that the name represents a new beginning for herself. As Chanmi, she felt weighed down by and permanently tied to the AOA brand, which has been irreparably damaged, and she wants to re-enter the industry not as AOA's Chanmi, but as Dohwa. It was a nice insight into her character. I think she's safe from evil editing for the duration of this arc. It felt really obvious to me that Mnet wants us to link Soa and JooE to each other, like some kind of symbiotic popularity gain. Also, the giant baby nickname being lifted straight from Wonyoung during Produce 48. Remember how I said Mnet's editing gets very tiring? They also rehash storylines so much. I'll get into that more later. Soa's performance was very good. You could tell she was nervous performing alone for the first time, especially as the second youngest on the show, but she did well. I'll expand on it a bit later, but I think a lot of the up-down votes are based on things we, as the audience, aren't experiencing. We all know Mnet edited the live performances on their shows for airing, so I think there's a good amount of missed notes and lack of breath support and little mistakes that we aren't seeing, but the contestants are seeing. Back to Soa. I think she's so cute, but I do have 2 criticisms of her performance. First is that I don't think Rum Pum 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 was the right choice in the sense that it's extremely reliant on a group performance, especially the pre-chorus. The second is I think the skateboard bit was cute, but ultimately an unnecessary addition because it was underutilized. I saw a lot of comments about how they voted for JooE and people joking that they really downvoted her that much because they couldn't see her face, but I really don't think that's the full story. What I noticed was that she skipped singing a lot of lines or parts of lines, which we can see in a later performance isn't appreciated. She also doesn't have a lot of stage presence here, and I think the hat was covering that up for her for half of the performance, but after she threw it off, it just became more apparent. She's clearly a good dancer, and she has a lot of potential for growth, but all in all, this performance highlighted to me the importance of experience. This is the second time Mnet has tried to create a group rivalry with Cherry Bullet. First with Yorum on Girls' Planet, now with Rocket Punch. Like, we get it, you like pitting women against each other. Jiwon also had a great performance, and I think hers highlights that they're willing to forgive skipping lines if you go for the more difficult parts. But honestly, to me, her performance was doing a bit too much. There was a lot going on, and I felt like we missed out on a lot of her charming points because me, personally, I was too busy trying to keep up. She still did well, and she clearly impressed a lot of the contestants, so they probably saw something I didn't. This is the part where I admit I've never listened to advice in full, but I agree with the contestants that the chorus was too high. If it sounded shouty and strained to me, I wonder what it sounded like to them. She did well, though. The performance was executed well and the verses were really good, but I think that last chorus was the issue. Too bad Mnet didn't properly show us that part. Also, the ending was very shaky on the dancer's part, and I think it negatively affected the impact of that ending pose. If I was designing it, I would have had her step onto a 1-foot lift on the other side and trust fall into it instead of being raised, but that's just me. I think Nana really showcased why she's known for her dancing, but it wasn't until the last 20 seconds that I got any stage presence. I think it was mostly just being nervous, but her vocals were very stable, and again, the choreo was well executed. For a majority of the performance, though, I couldn't help but be reminded of Irene and her signature no expression, wide eyes performance look. So yeah, she showcased a lot of her skills, but I don't think the charm was conveyed the way it should have because she didn't look comfortable on stage. Again, it's probably just because it's her first time performing solo and she's just seen her seniors make mistakes and get judged harshly. It's a lot of pressure. I'm sure all of the girls will improve on this as the show progresses and they get more comfortable with each other. I'm gonna be honest, I thought Chae-young downvoting all the other contestants because she wanted to not be the crybaby for once was funny. Like, at least she was downvoting all of them equally? And honestly, with her reputation as a dancer, I think she was allowed to be cocky about it. On to the performance, though. I was convinced she was going to remix it into Knock for half the performance. Kind of upset she didn't, but also interested that she didn't go where I thought she would with it. However, it wasn't until she started singing that I felt like her stage presence and expressions kicked in, and she was better for the rest of the performance, but it lacked her usual confidence. Something must have thrown her off balance early on because she's done more complex choreos with more confidence. Or maybe the pressure got to her. Gotta admit, I was very hyped for her performance and I left it feeling underwhelmed. Same with a lot of these first episode performances. I was very impressed with Phi's version of Hype Boy. I don't even like the original, but I thought her version had so much character and I understand why it went viral. From the first 10 seconds, I immediately thought she would be such a great lead vocal in the final lineup. The song switch showed her duality amazingly with that split second where she immediately got into character. That's someone who knows she's confident on stage. But the rap. Not everyone needs to do everything, let's just leave it at that. Honestly, my main note on her is I think she would be a great addition to the lineup. I was very hyped for Yorum's performance of and I have to say she had probably the most stage presence displayed so far in the show. I think winning Queendom did so much for her stage confidence, but speaking of Queendom, this part was probably the single most impressive thing I saw all episode, and all I could think was, if she could do this the whole time, why did the Uju Sonyo stages never showcase it? Especially because it shows how much confidence she has on stage to allow the dancers to risk dropping her twice within the same 3-second period. Anyways, I just have issues with how Uju Sonyo executed their stages, but seeing this, I thought, this is the confidence of a Queendom winner. Not just in her performance, but in the staging and the choreo itself. I hope to see more of this from both Yorum and Uju Sonyo going forward. Uyeon. Performing in front of the original artist is always going to be terrifying, so I don't want to be too harsh on her, but maybe we should have gone with an easier Taeyeon song? I know that's a nearly impossible thing to do, but she's such a huge fan. Surely there's a Taeyeon song she's been singing for a while. Perhaps 4 Seasons would have been a better choice. Either way, I knew someone was going to bite the bullet and do a Taeyeon song because this wouldn't be Mnet if they didn't. However, I think her score was justified. She did really well, but she bailed on the killing part, and that is inexcusable in K-pop. I simultaneously think this is the best Bora has ever sounded, and wish she hadn't gone for that final high note. This part. Right before the dance break was so gorgeous and stunning, 10 out of 10. But that strain on the final note was disappointing. If FNC isn't going to give Cherry Bullet comebacks, they could at least get them a more competent vocal coach. She's improved a lot since Girls Planet, but those strained high notes are going to kill her voice if she isn't careful. She clearly has the potential to hit those notes, but whoever her coach is should be sued for letting her go on stage without the proper technique. But don't get me wrong, I don't even think IU herself can hit that note cleanly live. I think even Taeyeon might struggle with it without the right warm-up. And also, we know from the Girls Planet contestants that the Mnet studios are not an ideal setup for difficult vocal performances. You could hear from the build-up that she wasn't going to be able to support that note, and I really hope her throat didn't hurt too much afterwards. But honestly, such a stunning performance aside from that. It brought tears to my eyes to think how hard Bora works all the time to prove herself as a vocalist. I really hope she makes it this time, and I hope FNC start doing their job and give her a solo debut after the show, followed by a Cherry Bullet comeback. I'm so excited for K, JooE, and Yin's performances in the next episode. I just hope I can upload this before that airs. If you want to hear more of my thoughts on Queendom Puzzle, you can like this video and subscribe for updates. I also love hearing other people's thoughts, so tell me what you thought of the performances. What was your favorite? Who are you anticipating? And is there anyone you're already rooting for to make it into the final lineup?